All right. Well, welcome back to the Gary My podcast. Thank you for joining me again today. Last episode, I was talking about Aaron and our marriage, and I finished off talking about key things to do in order to help us kind of get through some dark times and to just motivate ourselves to do the things that are hard. I spoke about putting post-it notes around your house if you are a person who speaks bad about yourself, who's got like this internal voice that is always constantly beating yourself up, saying you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not good looking enough, that sort of voice that sits there and just trips you up. So I gave you a couple key things to kind of do was get some post-it notes, post them everywhere around your house, like on your mirror, on your door on the way out, even in your car, on your fridge. And then I talk about sitting in your pain and meditating on it and watching certain sticking points in your life go past. Like I was talking about how for myself, when I'm in meditation or in prayer, I in my mind's eye I can see that thing that is sticking, and it's an icky place to be. It's really uncomfortable, and I'm like, well, I got to figure it out. And then I overthink it, and then I like basically meditate on the negative rather than on the positive. Well, how can we change that? Well, I thought, well, okay. For example, just speaking in my current world, this week, it's a big one for me. March is always a tough one. Doesn't matter how many years it's already been, but beginning of March, the 2nd, my sister passed away, and she was only 37, and I've already outlived her. And it was one of those weird moments when I was older than her, and um, I haven't truly grieved her as per se. Like I know she's gone. I even went down to Florida, Daytona Beach, to go and pick up her ashes, and that was actually a really, I guess maybe that was why it was a very cleansing, very pure way for me to go and do a farewell. So I picked her up in her urn at her boyfriend's house at the time, and Aaron, my now husband, who was my boyfriend then, we drove all the way down the coast of Florida, down to Key West, and back up to Orlando. Had my sister in the car with us, and we went to all these really cool places, and it was really good. And everywhere that we went, I can almost see my sister, like she would talk about different places that she'd been in Florida. And so I guess that was a really great way for me to celebrate her life and have a funeral. And so I brought her ashes home for her children. So the week of March 2nd, and then that same week, it's my dad's birthday, and then it's my mom's passing as well. So my mom passed away on the 6th, and my dad's birthday is on the 5th. So it's this whole week of anxiety. And it puts me into the space where everything that I want or need to do just becomes a task. Like it's like I'll do it tomorrow. Like today, for example, like everything that I had to do at work, I own my own business. So a lot of self-propelling, I had zero motivation this week. And I was like, I'm going to take a page out of my own book and be okay with the things that I don't do, but I'm going to make a list of things that I have to get done today so that I don't feel like a complete piece of S. You know what I mean? And I get through it, and it's tough. And even just going to the bank and dealing with them and like getting in the lineup, like even to the point when I got to the bank, I was like, don't want to be here. Then I got into the banking hall and I was like, oh, I doubly don't want to be here. And then I stood in line and I was like, Gary, the whole day I've been coaching myself. Just do the things that you said you were going to do on your list and get through it. You'll feel better for it. And here I am, and I'm sitting down and I'm doing this podcast right now. And don't get me wrong, I love doing the podcast, but because my frame of mind has just been just in a garbage space, this is it. This is why I do it. This is an outlet, and it's a perfect place for unperfect people, and I'm one of them. And so last week I was talking about meditating and seeing that thing that's a sticking point in your mind going on this conveyor belt past you. And I put it in an analogy of it being very prickly, and how do we round those edges? This week I've been prickly. Everything's been prickly. I've kind of fallen into like an old pattern of like, woe is me, and like, why is everything so difficult, and why am I like always fighting uphill, and I feel like I'm on a treadmill uphill. And it was one of those weeks that I was saying, like, you can go through moments in your life where you're feeling really good and on top of it, and things are moving forward. And then you have moments where you're doing 2 or 3 steps back. And talking about it, it's very real. So the ways that I tackled it this week was to understand it. Yeah, I mean, it's a big week for me. We lose people, and every year it's an anniversary, and it's a reminder that we are not with them and that they're gone. And then you get, reminded of that pain. And if you were there while it happened, you play all those scenes through your head. And it's weird. It's because you're moving along in the years of them gone, but all of a sudden you get thrown right back into the day. So it feels like it was yesterday, regardless if it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Grief is an ongoing thing, and it's always a changing sphere. It's like it's never just round. It's always like a rugby ball, and then it goes back into like a square, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're good, and it's very linear. And then all of a sudden, just a memory or a song will come on, and you're just like, your gut just is like in a pit, and you're just like, why do I still feel that ache? And with that ache, everything else seems polarized and exponentially bigger than it really is. And so this week I was just allowing myself to, like I say, give yourself grace and be kind. And, I've been doing that. I'm just kind of treading a little lighter. And I know that I'm a little bit more sensitive and things are going to trigger me because I'm in that head frame. But today, going to gym, going to work, doing the quotes that I do for my job, what I do in construction, and then just going to the bank and making sure that all my admin stuff is done and doing the taxes. And it's just, you have to do all the adult things. But I knew that I got up this morning that I just felt overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, yesterday was March 6th. I'm finally over that hump, but I still got like this hangover from the week. I'm not feeling motivated. I'm really just going to put this on a piece of paper. It's going to be a to-do list. And I'm going to make sure that I don't overload that list. I'm not going to put 20 things on that list. I'm going to start off and start putting 5 things on that list. And getting through those 5 key points of my day that needed to be done, here I am being able to be creative and be productive in this realm on the podcast and talk about it. So again, it's finding 3 things in your life that maybe you don't like or that you don't like about yourself. And then finding another 3 things off of that, branching off and saying, well, I find like I'm overweight. Okay, what does that look like? How do I change that? First of all, okay, I'm going to commit to doing 5,000 steps a day. I have a watch. Cool, I'm going to do that. I'm going to commit to it. It's going to be a goal. And then after that, instead of having that bag of chips, the whole bag of chips, maybe I'm going to just take a handful, put it into a bowl, and portion size it. 2, okay. Number 3, what else can I do? I can drink more water. Great, start there. And then commit to that for about 2 weeks, and then just watch how things start to change. I find that if you set goals, commit to it, when you're on the other end of it, you just feel there's like a sense of success and a progress. And you're like, you have to celebrate those little wins. And it doesn't have to be big wins. It has to always be those little small ones that we do have to remind ourselves that, like, yay, today I didn't have that 5th Coke Light. I only had 4. And all those little steps make a difference. And then it's not even just about weight. It could be something about like, the way that you speak to your colleagues, or the way that you wake up in the morning and you're saying, oh, I'm not a morning person. Okay, well, I need to start, for me personally, my day has to start off on a good foot, and it just creates that momentum. And I do different things in the morning to make sure that I'm okay. I'll get up in the morning and I'll just take a moment and I'll just be grateful. I'll right away, like before I even put my feet on the ground, before I even start, I will be like thankful for my bed, thankful for my pillow, thankful for the sleep that I did have. Even if I didn't have a great night's sleep, I did still sleep. Thank you for that. And then I would get out of bed, and then I would then start in my meditation already. I would then start thanking God for what's going to happen today, for wisdom, for the strength, for already putting it out there and saying, you know what, today is something amazing is going to happen. And then I declare it like, yeah, today is going to be a great day. Something amazing is going to happen. And it doesn't even need to be something that is like, oh, I won the lottery, amazing, which would be amazing, but more of like a great text from somebody, or somebody just confirming with you that you are doing the right thing and that where your direction in life is finally moving forward. Or if you are a person who's into synchronicities and you say like, oh, I see 11:11 or I see 10:10 or I'm seeing things that are like confirming that I'm on the right path. Just allowing your mind to be prepared in the morning before you even start to receive those different little, amazing nuances that life throws at us. That's the spice of life. And if we wake up in the morning and we're already in a mood, and which happens, I mean, to all of us, you find that if you just grumble and you get in the truck or your car and you're just like, ah, and you're like on the horn, 5 kilometers from your house, you're already completely pissed off because of traffic. By the time you get to work, you're already heated. And then you have to kind of start again and then like unpack and declutter. And then by the time you actually feel like you're going to feel like less of that weight, it's already 10 or 11 o'clock. So half your day is already gone. I feel that in the morning, if you can just find a little bit of quiet time and space to move and to breathe and to be okay with anything that does come into your path that day that could be challenging, is just a challenge. And you allow yourself to make mistakes and be human and just be gracious and just be like, okay, here we go. Let's just get on with it and not worry about it. I know it sounds easier said than done, but I find that putting things down on paper and having goals of the day that you want to do, and then being realistic about it, saying, yeah, okay, cool. This one seems easy. Start there. Let's get these ones done, and then I'll chew on it. Or if you're one of those people who like to do the hard things first, like I do, go ahead, do the hard things first, because then it just gets easier as you go through your day. However you want to tackle it, have at least 5 things that you want to accomplish. And then when you come home after work, before you even get into your house, calculate how much energy you have to bring into the house. Don't bring whatever is at work or whatever that person down the road who cuts you off. Don't bring that into your house, because then you're just going to ruin your night. And it takes work and it's practice, and you're not always going to be good at it. But the more you try and the more you learn yourself to be a certain wavelength and being able to be even keel, you'll find that life will just open up. Saying that, I've been trying to put in those works too, and it's you'll have 2 or 3 days where it just feels smooth and amazing, and you're like, oh, I got this inner energy, and it's like this little fire burning, and you're like, yeah, I got this like extra like funk in my step, and I'm feeling great. And then you'll have like a week where things will trip you up, and it could be like, for me, this week is a lot of memory of a lot of people that I've lost in my life that mean a lot to me, and I start to internalize the different pain, and then you notice it. I don't know how we can fully move on from that, but I had a really good friend of mine saying, why don't we just change the narrative, flip the script? And she was like, why don't you, because like in the winter here in Canada, a lot of people do adventures and stuff where the weather is a little bit warmer. Why don't I, over that time period, start doing adventures like climbing mountains or going on like, all inclusives or whatever it is that you want to do? In those moments, celebrating it, but being active in celebration. And if you can't afford to go to these overseas locations or to go on to different trips, find things that you can do in the city, like escape rooms, or join an art class that day, and be creative and find an outlet rather than sitting in it. And that was a really good one for me. I found that one was key. So in saying that, I'm going to push along a little bit here. I was speaking about being married and having Aaron in my life, and then his parents being a very key point in the relationship for him and I. At that point, had started to open up my own business, and Aaron and I's relationship has really only been about me being an entrepreneur, which has been really hard. If you're an entrepreneur out there, you know that there's no off, right? You're working from the time you wake up, which is whatever time, say 6 o'clock in the morning, till 10:30 at night when you go to bed. You're on. You're always thinking about what's going to happen the next day, what the project's going to happen. You're getting text messages, you're getting email. It's on. Even when you go on holiday, you really don't have that switch off. So that can put a toll on your relationship, and it had. Not too sure where I'm going to go with this, but I feel that a lot of people out there who are just burning the candle on both ends are not finding enough space for themselves and being able to slow down and be like, okay, I am an entrepreneur and I am hungry and I do want to make a success of this business, but there's got to be a cutoff in our society, especially in North America. It's like, oh, you need to grind, you need to hustle, you have to have a second, third job. If you're not doing all the things like working 5 jobs and then going to the gym and then looking like a superstar and, traveling around and having 30,000 followers on Instagram. And, if you're not perfect, there's just all this pressure on us. And what that really gets from us is a lot of facade, fake, and Instagram filters. And then burnout ultimately. And I had moments of that. And this is why I talk on this podcast, because this is an outlet for me to be able to speak about it. Life is, it's funny. You think one minute you've got it all together, but we're all just trying to make a go out of it. Life is so short. Why are we spending it on trying to, you know, grind and get all the things and new furniture, new clothes, more, nice house, big car. And then we all die, and then that's it. And you can't even take that with you. And the older I get, the more that seems to sink in. And in regards to trying to be the bigger, the better, and having all the nice stuff, that really just makes you look like somebody who's trying to keep up with the Joneses. Instead of being a fruitful person in community, in outreach, in memories of traveling and camping and all those things that you can accumulate, people start to accumulate all these different material stuff. Yeah. Well, yesterday, actually, March 6th, marks 15 years since my mom passed away. And it's going into my second month of doing this podcast. And I've really unpacked a lot of trauma, past memories, things that I haven't really spoken about or even thought about very deeply in a very long time. So unpacking all of that has really, I don't know if it's, turned it back into like a pressure point, but this week, the anniversary of my sister and my mom has really thrown me off. And then I called my dad for his birthday, March 5th, 69th birthday. And this week just was a whole week full of just anxiety. And I know that there's people out there who can relate to this. I don't have a great relationship with my dad. My dad isn't anything active in my life. He doesn't have a role where he knows the names of my pets. He doesn't talk to my husband on his own. I've lived in Canada now since 2012, and he hasn't come and visited me. I know just by action what my priority or what my level on the totem pole is to him. And every time we do talk, it's either about politics or something that has nothing to do with my life. Or it's my birthday or it's his birthday or, barely even Christmas or whatever. But I never get a phone call just to be like, hey, I'm checking in on you, son. And I know that I've tried my best to heal the relationship. I've always been the one that's kind of extended that olive branch and been like, hey, this is on my mind. I really need to figure this out. I'd love to be able to work on our relationship. Why don't we try things out? And it's always come from my side. I've never had him say, hey, son, I love you, or like, hey, just checking in on you. Hey, I bought a ticket. I'm going to come and visit you. The big events in my life are just not like, I basically don't have an immediate family. I mean, I do have, but not in present. And a lot of people out there who have great families, I admire that. And I kind of envy it. I wish I had that. And people who can have access to like saying, look, I'm going to grow my business. Can my parents help me out with some sort of financial backing? I'll pay you back. I don't have any of that. And a lot of us out there don't. And that makes us stronger and we have to pull it out of our own bag. And it's tough sometimes, right? Like, sure, I'd love to have, my father knock on my door and come in and help build my deck when we were building a deck, or help just with anything, just to like, if I have somebody to bounce things off of, right? And just to have that father figure. And yeah, not having that and having to like kind of navigate life on your own, it's pretty hard. And I feel you. And this week was extra hard for me. And so I called my dad on his birthday, and it was just from the start to the end, wasn't very good. I mean, I started ranting. I already went into the conversation not feeling in a great headspace, and instead of celebrating him and trying to be an adult about it, I was, complaining about the Canadian situation, how things are expensive, and then I don't know. It was just and then I got off the phone, and there was not even like "I love you" or "I'm proud of you" or And then the next day, my mom's anniversary, her death anniversary, comes up, and I don't hear from him. Like, is it my responsibility to always chase the parent? And I've done that, and I just feel garbage about it sometimes. I'm like, well, should I have like put in extra work, or should I put in extra work, or do I control alt delete, reset, and then start over again and create an expectation? I always get this. There's moments where there are breakthrough, and then I get excited. I'm like, okay, well, we're working on it, and then it just doesn't. And um, yeah, I've been working through that this week, and I haven't really come to a conclusion on kind of where we should start to heal. But like I was saying earlier, just doing the things that are hard and difficult, just getting through it, working through your pain, digging deep, and promising yourself that you're going to show up for yourself, regardless of what that looks like. If it's messy, um, if you're tripping and if you're not feeling great, that's okay. You showed up. You did what you had to do. Sometimes it doesn't look pretty, but everything's a process. And like I always found that any time that I was in a real deep funk, the way to get out of it is to actually help people. I've said it before, especially my grief when I lost my parents. Well, my mom, and that's what I'm talking to myself right now. Getting out of your headspace, and most times when you're in that space, you're actually feeling sorry for yourself. And that's what makes that irritation. Like when I feel sorry for myself, I'm irritated because I don't want to be around myself. I'm sure other people don't want to be around me because I'm just in a funk. And the way to pull yourself out is to do the hard things, go to gym. And then when you're there, it just some things start releasing. Then you start to like run into people, and then you hear conversations about other people who are going through things that are worse than you. Like, they've lost their daughter, or just some heavies. Everybody is going through something, and we're not alone. And that is what I really want to say about it. I've felt alienated by my family in that sense, because I then have this saying like, no one actually calls him out on his parenthood. Um, these are the things that make me angry. Um, I was angry that my grandma didn't say anything, that he really doesn't step up after my mom passed away. My aunts, my uncles didn't do that. Um, Family members, that's not really their role, right? I guess, but that those are all real feelings. I don't say that those are real feelings, but those are real feelings for me that I felt inside. Like these are the things that I was tripping up on. How valid they are is as valid as what, because I'm feeling it. That's what the validity of it is. But if it's true and it's just an emotion and it's just a feeling, feelings and emotions can lie. We need to be able to distinguish between what is creating a hurt train and what sort of perpetuates continual hurt. And when you get stuck into it, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a cycle of depression because you've put yourself there. And when I was talking about the tools before, about all those little prickly things and not knowing how to round those edges, it is about sitting in your pain. And it really is about digging deep and finding your core, and talking to your creator, and praying and doing the work that needs to be done. Like meditation is ABITCH. I got to do it more. And when I do it, or when I run into a space where I can, like I said before, I'm Christian, and I read the word. I mean, not here trying to sell you the Bible, but this is what works for me. I would get in the Word and I would pray about it. And like today, I was just had my head on the desk at work, and I was like, oh, I'm so tired. Just need a breakthrough. And then I prayed about it, opened up the Word, and like a passage in the Bible came to me. If you want to check it out, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 13. And it talks about a lot of the struggles that we have. God is there for us, and he would never throw anything at us that we cannot handle. Actively seeking him, we find tools to persevere and endure and to come out on the other end and be victorious. And when I read that today, that was definitely a moment. I actually read it yesterday. Today I read it for the second time. I kind of studied it. So, there are outlets. There are things that you can do. And for me was purely meditation and studying of this certain passage that came to me and having a relationship. And it's weird though that again, I talk about how God can show his face to me, but yet I'm married to a man. And then there's a church out there that says you can't have a relationship with God because it's sin and you're pushing yourself away. And what you're doing is, blasphemy or Sodom and Gomorrah or whatever you want to call it. It's having a relationship with God is very personal. It's between you and him, nobody else. What everybody else wants to say, you can't enter their building because of a certain relationship you have with your wife or your husband, and it's a same-sex relationship, then that person probably needs to go jump sideways in the lake. My mom used to say that, actually. She's like, go jump sideways in the lake. It was always funny. Don't know where that comes from. If you actually know where that comes from, let me know. But yeah, I am going to resort to changing my mind frame and be intentional about it. And I always am an advocate of putting things down on paper, and I've got a journal. And in my journal today, after this podcast, I am going to put 3 things that I really do admire about my dad, 3 things about my mom, 3 things about my sister. I'm always about threes. It's just, it makes it easy. It's bite size. And I am going to just, I guess, meditate on the gratitude that I have for that and change my mind. Our mind is a muscle. We have to learn to exercise it, and in the pain and in the discomfort and the uncontrolled thoughts, we need to silence it. That's very important. Turn off your phone. Get into a room where you're not going to be distracted. Find a time in your day, at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes, where you can just work on yourself. Very important. And if you can't find things to find that are going to make you grateful, start writing things down that make you feel uncomfortable. Like, I am amazing today. I feel like I am in such a good mood. I feel like I bring such great energy. And when you see that, you start to, again, it's like you put that into action. You see it on paper, you see it in your mind, you're creating it. And it's like that sort of practice that we used to do in school. Like when you see The Simpsons, when Bart gets into trouble and he has to write on the board a million times over what he did wrong. It's kind of the same thing, but in the opposite. Why don't we start putting all the things that we do right, even if we haven't done it yet? Let's just say it. I have made a successful bread. I have been able to bake these cookies, things that really do interest you, things that you think that you cannot do. Like I cannot bake for the life of me. I'm not even going to pretend like that's a thing. But would I love to be able to create this beautiful cake and these like fluffy, soft, like amazing, juicy, like red velvet cupcakes? Absolutely. Like I would, yeah, but I can't. But I could try if that's something that's kind of sit in my heart and say, hey, like I'm going to do the thing that's hard. I can do it. First off, let me start by telling myself, you can do it. 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 And before you know it, it's like I said before, it's a habitual thing. It's not even something you're telling anymore. You're actually doing it. Meditation works in 2 ways. You can positively reinforce the language into yourself when you're in meditation. And when we're anxious and we're worrying, we're constantly going around in a circle about the same thing. We're like already preempting something that's going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. This is what's wrong. This is what's next is going to happen. And we just create this little ball of tight anger and anxiety, and we create a bigger outlook of what's actually going to happen. And that's also another form of meditation, but in the wrong way, and negativity. So yeah, I think, like I said, I want to be completely true and honest about it. I've been struggling this week, and that's probably for a lot of people. And the season between winter and spring, again, that change, and we're like right at the tail end, and we're just waiting for that new, fresh. It's always that like little bit of a uncomfortable moment. And I think that if we just sit in quiet, find peace, and meditate on just finding a place where we can just be in ourself and not worry about the external, it's kind of the great Control Alt Delete reset, and then we can start our day. Super important. I don't know if I can come up with any great solutions on pain and grief, but I have always found that sitting in your pain and your grief and knowing it, recognizing it, is better than putting it under a carpet and saying, I'm not going to deal with it. Because then that shows its face in different things like alcoholism, drug abuse, abuse on people. You start to get pent up, and you're like a pressure valve that's just at like the highest it goes. And somebody can say something to you, not even in a bad way, and you just snap, and you become somebody you're not. So if you were just to open up that valve in time of prayer and breathing is a very key part of it too. You end up finding yourself opening up different places where you can go in your mind that are peaceful, like finding when I was working on the meditation part of when I was abused as a kid, I had actually my counselor say to me, she's like, well, you know what? Why don't you go into that hotel room where you were abused as a kid? Go there as an adult, and what do you see? And like the first time that I'd done it, it was, I like had to run and like go and grab that kid and like save him and be like, I'm going to take you out, and just before it all happens, I'm going to just, but because it's already there, I always come too late. I can never save that kid. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go murder that abuser, and I'm going to like, this is how I'm going to kill him. And then I'm going to like beat him up, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And every time that I went into that room, when I was doing a negative with a negative, it was never coming out positive for me. I wasn't feeling better about it. But what I did do is, I remember one point allowing that child to be forgiven and be like, it's not your fault. And when I did that, I had met that child who was me in an open field. It was really warm, and it was like long, tall grass, like you can see like in the prairies. And I just remember sitting beside that kid and in meditation, and not saying anything, but just feeling a connectivity and a connection of, yes, that happened to me, but it has now become a story. It's not something that I feel offended by anymore. I was abused. I'm not abused. I was starting to change my language, and that happened probably over a year. It took a lot of work, and it wasn't every day sitting downstairs going in my gym on the cold floor mats and doing the meditation. It was more about starting to learn to do things that made me feel healthy, like juicing, talking nicer to myself. And it was all processes. It wasn't overnight, and I'm still going through it. It's not done. I'm not, some guy that's sitting on the platform preaching at people telling them this is how you do it, because I'm still failing. But I'm not where I was. And I know that moving forward, it's going to be an easier path. And that's the same thing with my sexuality and controlling how I see the narrative. And there was a lot of time when I would feel nervous about like going into a public space and like people knowing that Aaron and I were in a relationship, or if we would go to the movies, if they would think, oh, they're a gay couple, or if he's got his hand on me in the truck and we're driving and I could see people maybe looking him through the windows or whatever. All those like uncomfortable moments, I had to learn to be like, so what? You know what? I have got this one life to live. I am going to enjoy it. And yeah, that is a really good place to be. There's a lot of moments where I still feel uncomfortable and I go back to my old self and way of thinking, but I do feel, again, like I said, within repetition of being positive and speaking positivity into your own life and taking the moments to be quiet and to hear your own inner voice in meditation. And when you see those life events that have caused you to take the scenic route, or you go into a bit of a tailspin, you can see those things happening, but it can be just a story rather than your reality. And once you get to that point, you can start to change the way that you do your day to day, and you can start living in peace and happiness, and you can create that. Before I started this podcast, actually, again, complete authenticity, I had stopped and started this podcast probably 5 times. Wasn't in the space. I love doing podcasts. I just didn't want to put out a whole bunch of garbage and fish paste and be like, here you go, try to work on something, without me saying, hey, look, I'm in the trenches and I'm working on it myself too, so we can do it together. So again, it's all about community. It's about reaching out and making sure that other people are okay. If you haven't spoken to somebody and you have that gut feeling that you're like, I need to give that person a call, don't push that away. Just drop them a text, even a quick little voicemail on WhatsApp if you don't want to, phone them if that's still awkward for you. Let somebody know you love them. It's, again, like I said in my last podcast, it's those little things that you do in action that changes people's lives, and you can change it for the good. And by living by example is huge. So I'm going to leave you there today. And I hope that this weekend coming, you can just find a little bit of space and start working on the things that you feel you need to work on. Drop me an email. Gary, well, you've seen like the Gary My podcast. So in the Gary My podcast, in this link, there will be a bio link in there that will take you to my platform. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the different socials. So, I mean, if you are like, hey, I need this or have that, or let's talk about that, again, more than happy to do it. This is my journey. This is why I do this, because this is a part of my healing. Like I said, I'm writing a book, and in that book, it will be a lot more in detail about the past and the heavies. And but yeah, this week was just in memory of my mom, Debbie Lorna Mai. Deborah actually was her full name, and then my sister, Donnie Campbell. My sister was a woman who had a great laugh, who is a mother to 3 children, and didn't have it easy. And I know that she's resting easy now. My mom was somebody who always knew how to fill a room with her energy. And especially in her last chapters of life, she was just such a light for a lot of people. And I am so very grateful for that. I'm so very grateful for the time I got to spend with my sister in Florida as I drove with her ashes, and we got to go and explore the coast. Being humbled to bring her ashes back to her children in Canada was a life-changing thing for me. And being able to see my mom on her very last day and watch her take her last breath, and the beauty of all those angels in the room who took her, I can't even explain how grateful I am for that. And that is how I'm going to live the rest of this week. Today's Thursday, I've got one more day in our work week where I can go and make a change. And change always comes in the morning. So get a good night's sleep, and I know that tomorrow we can reset and start again. And we've got so many days to do that. So let's make it count. All right. Thanks again.